Hi, my name is Brandie Paterakis, and I'm the owner of Blue Bee Counseling Services. I'm a mother and wife who is passionate about life and has found joy in helping others improve their mental health. The goal of this podcast is not only to provide enriching entertainment, but to help others in their pathway to have a more fulfilling life. This in no way is a replacement for therapy. Follow us on this journey of mental health awareness. Blue Bee Counseling Services now presents this podcast, Therapist Table Talk. Hi, welcome to Therapist Table Talk today. My name is Brandie Paterakis. I'm an LCSW and owner of Blue Bee Counseling Services. I am super excited about our topic today. We have a fun one. It affects a lot of people across America and across the world. But first, let's get to know my friends here. So, should we start with you?
Sure. I'm Julie Mathewson. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and currently I work at Healing Focus Counseling, which is a business that myself and my partners own, and we do outpatient counseling and for kids and adults, but we see a lot of anxiety and depression, and also I work in a hospital setting, a psychiatric hospital setting part-time, so we see a lot there too.
That is fascinating. I love that.
And I'm Wendy Reimann. I'm also an LCSW, licensed clinical social worker. I am also certified in EMDR therapy and have a lot of passion and belief in the process of EMDR, especially with anxiety. I, as Julia said, work in an outpatient setting at Healing Focus Counseling, and I'm excited to be here to support Brandie and therapists in general.
That's awesome. And I have to say, me and Wendy go back a little bit. We go back where we worked at an inpatient treatment facility for teenage youth. And I was the intern and she was the mentor. And so it was actually really cool that I get to have her on here today. We've kind of remained friends, haven't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the stigmas of not being friends with your mentor after this is not true. You can definitely do that.
Well, and if we're going there, Julie was not my professional supervisor, but the whole reason I got into this profession was because I wanted to follow in her footsteps. So we're at a table of mentors here.
Wow, that's really cool. So the fact that you inspired her and she inspired me, we have a downline. We're almost like your children.
Who's next?
Logan.
I was just going to say, can I say Logan?
And Logan is the one who's behind filming this for us today. And so say hi, Logan.
Hi.
You can't see
me, but
I'm here.
She's there. So our topic today is like one of the things that I think is the most prevalent thing that I see come in through my doors at Blue Bee Counseling Services. And it is high. There's a lot of people struggling with this. And so you're probably going to find people that you know, even yourself, that have had moments of this. And so today, the topic is generalized anxiety disorder, or anxiety in general. And the difference between having anxiety and anxiety or generalized anxiety disorder, there is some differences. Let's maybe dive into the DSM diagnosis, which is the book that a lot of us therapists use to diagnose some of our clients to see what they have. And there's some criteria that is listed in order to actually diagnose them with generalized anxiety disorder. So there's levels to anxiety. There is feeling anxious about, going on a date this weekend, or anxiety about doing a podcast, right? Or there's anxiety about getting that special assignment for work that needs to be done and accomplished. And anxiety can be good. It's thrilling, and it motivates you, and it helps you get some things crossed off that checklist of those goals. And so I don't know, what do you guys think about, when does it become anxiety versus maybe unhealthy anxiety? And then also maybe even diving into the GAD or the generalized anxiety disorder.
I think that anxiety, like you said, is very good in motivating us to do things, getting things done. We have to have a certain amount of anxiety and stress, or we wouldn't do anything. I have to have a little anxiety that I gotta do something to help a friend or finish something at work, or we would just sit there. So I think a good anxiety, I think it starts becoming a problem when it leaks over into other parts of our life, or it becomes a problem when we are starting to feel physical feelings, our body starts reacting to the stress. Then it starts to worry you as to what is this anxiety, and what do I do about it?
Yeah, that's perfect. Wendy, what do you think?
Well, I also think anxiety can also be worded as anticipation.
Ooh, I like that.
Anticipation. I mean, have I got my Christmas shopping done? Who am I inviting over for Thanksgiving dinner? In one hand, it can be anticipatory, and that's healthy and it's good. On the other hand, it can be overwhelming and stressful, but it's just circumstantial. Thanksgiving, Christmas, holidays, that kind of stuff, or podcasts or whatever. Anxiety that inhibits our ability to function and is longer than 6 months will meet one of the criterias of generalized anxiety disorder. If we get what I call on that hamster wheel and we just keep running and running and running, and 6 months from now we're just running, and yet we're getting nowhere. And as Julie said, it affects us somatically. Our nervous system is heightened and activated, then we definitely become more impaired in our work environment, in our family environments, in our social environments. And that's when I think we need to start paying attention to, if we start noticing passing on some of the social events that are coming around the holidays, because I just don't want to deal with it. Okay, 1 or 2 is fine, but just noticing, am I isolating, am I shutting down? That becomes more of an impairment.
Yeah, that's perfect. Let's go into the DSM diagnosis here. There's a couple of things that we definitely watch for when diagnosing GAD, or generalized anxiety disorder. And a couple of those is feeling fatigued, like we kind of talked about, that fatigue or the lack of desire to get out and do things that we really used to love to do. Feeling restless or on edge.
Yeah,
could be one.
Definitely.
Yeah. Difficulty focusing is one. We have irritability, and that's my favorite one because that's how I find it the fastest, because I get really irritable with my children. But that doesn't necessarily just one of these causes generalized anxiety disorder. It's not when just because you're irritable with your children, you're like, well, there's it. That's it.
That's it.
That's
diagnosed.
all. I'm diagnosed and I have generalized anxiety disorder.
Has it lasted 6 months?
Yeah, maybe. How old are my children?
18 years, 21 years.
Oh, that's good.
Consistently.
Yeah, consistently. Is it there? Is it impairing improvement in my daily life? Yes. Excessive feelings or worry that is difficult to control. That's a difficult one. Difficulty sleeping. Yeah.
That's something that's again come up a lot with clients. They just can't get that brain turned off and relax.
Yeah, that is true.
And not, some of these things may be contributors to other disorders as well. So we've got not only, you meet all these, so therefore it's this diagnosis. Well, as you mentioned in the beginning, I always ask them, when was the last time you had a physical and some lab work done? Do we know where your vitamin D levels are, your vitamin B levels, your thyroid, other things? Because if it is a physical symptom that is creating the anxiety, it's going to be more medical related in being able to handle it from an intervention standpoint. And so we've got to rule out a lot of different things, not just be flippant in just say, oh yeah, this is it, and give them a diagnosis.
For sure. I think we have to rule out other diagnoses too.
Definitely.
Yes. And so some of those could also be contributors to making us feel like we have generalized anxiety disorder, but really maybe it's not.
Trauma brings out a lot of these same symptoms. So if you've had a major trauma or have PTSD, you could definitely go, oh, I've got this too. But if you resolve the trauma, this part might also go away.
That is true. 2 more that is on here is to recognize that it also has to, just like Wendy said, it needs to last for more than 6 months. We also have it has to affect something in our life to a degree of almost severity, where it's affecting like our work or our home life or our relationships with other people, school. And then that's how we can kind of range it a little bit more in and recognize that, yeah, I might have generalized anxiety disorder. And if you think that this is something that maybe you're recognizing, oh my gosh, I have every single one of those and it's been longer than 6 months and it's affecting everything, then, you know, seek out a professional and have a look at it. I'm a firm believer that sometimes it's great to be diagnosed because then you know what you're working with, but it's also sometimes not necessary. We just have to have an awareness of like what's going on inside our bodies to really change something. So if it is or if it's not, if you're feeling those things, definitely, you know, jump on the bandwagon of calling these ladies, calling me, calling somebody in your area where they can help you with you know, helping with your mental health, which is very important.
Absolutely.
Well, let's get into some statistics, ladies, shall we? This is really fun. I like statistics. We have a bunch of them. We talked a little bit about them before we started the podcast because we wanted to look at them. Some of them have changed. There's a lot of statistics online because this is something that really affects a lot of people. In fact, a lot of the statistics that we found was a big majority before COVID. And now that we've been through COVID, we're kind of just barely starting to get some more statistics out there. I kind of wonder if everyone kind of went on a stop and nobody has any statistics because a lot of them was from like the 2017s. So statistics is great. And if you're one of those researchers that are doing it, we need you. So good job. Keep doing your thing. But some of the ones that we found is that anxiety is the most common mental disorder in the U.S., affecting 40 million adults. And this is by ADAA 2020, which I thought, yay, if you have a 2020, that's great. Prevalence by state of mental illness ranges from the lowest in Florida, ladies, 16.3%, to the highest, which is 22.66, in Oregon. Don't move to Oregon.
Utah.
In the middle. We're always in the middle, right?
We want to take sides.
Oh, that's so funny. It didn't actually say Utah, which I thought was fascinating because I'm like, if you're looking for a new place to go, maybe, you know, Florida might be your place. It's very sunny there.
Yeah.
You know?
Except for when it's raining. It rains almost every day, but it's short rain.
So then it's okay.
Yeah.
Unless you've got tickets to Busch Garden.
Then it rains all day. There's a story there.
Oh, there must be a story there. We might have to drive into some trauma in just a minute. That's awesome. The other thing is, let's see, the majority of adults with anxiety have a mild impairment of 43.5%. 33.7% have a moderate impairment, and 22% have a serious impairment, which I thought that was really quite fascinating. Join in here, ladies. Anything that you have to say. I'm just going to keep going. Nearly half, or 47%, survey respondents experience anxiety regularly, which is fascinating. That's true.
What year is that from?
That one is from 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think
Single care.
we talk about the before and after COVID. People ask, well, why would it be different after COVID?
Ooh.
And I think COVID on a global level had taken away our safety and security in a lot of areas. We all thought we could just get up and go and do our thing, and all of a sudden we couldn't. We couldn't see certain people, we couldn't do certain things. The government, you know, in all these countries got involved and said, you have to do this, you have to do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. So I think our sense of security was lost during that time.
Yeah, that is
And
true.
I think since COVID, we're also noticing now a lot of economic uncertainty within our country and our government. And I'm meeting with a lot of clients who get on that hamster wheel of worrying about the economic uncertainty, that anticipation of the future, and you know, how am I going to manage my life and my family's life and my children? And it can become very uncertain. And anxiety is definitely a form of worrying about the unknown. And there's a lot of unknowns.
There is, for sure. Anxiety can be very difficult. And especially during the COVID time, I think there was I don't know if you guys saw and noticed a rise, but I definitely noticed a rise in a lot of people calling me with anxiety and that plain old fear. Yeah.
You know, the expectation of graduating high school, of getting scholarships to college, of graduating colleges and getting jobs, and that disappeared for a whole chunk of people.
It did. Yeah, I remember talking to a bunch of teenage clients, and they were just like, "What's the point?
Mm-hmm.
What's the
Right.
point of graduating? They're not. I don't get to have graduation. I
Mhm.
don't. I don't get to. Now the scouting for my football career is not gonna happen.
Right.
And so now what's the point? I've lived my whole life for this moment, and I don't get to see this moment happen.
Yeah.
And it's just
So-
having to do a reset and say, okay, now what? Now
Yeah.
what?
Resilience and being able to reset and say, okay, but I still have to do this, or we still need to do this, or I still want to do this.
That is
You
so
know?
true. And while there is, a lot of hard things that happened during COVID, we are now, it feels like we kind of just come out only to kind of go back in, and we came out this last summer. Of course, this is, 2022 right now, but last summer, 2021, we're feeling, oh my gosh, I think we've hit over the hill, and everyone started feeling better.
Right.
My clients had like a little jump in their step. Therapy was going really, really well. And then come like almost November, it seemed like everyone started getting COVID again. There was a lot more fear and panic. The world started shutting down again. I know my cruise line canceled my cruise. I was pissed.
Right.
But there was a lot of things that were happening to keep people safe, and the worry of those loved ones that could potentially be harmed or hurt because of this thing. And so it was a big mess again. And I felt like there was this coming out again. I almost felt like I was back in 2020 trying to reset the clients. And by April or May, it's like, no, there is hope, and there is the ability to like overcome some of these things. And so definitely we're seeing some of the after effects from that, which is interesting. For sure. Well, shall we talk about like, what do we do? What do we do? This is a good thing, because what do we do if we have some of these symptoms, whether or not it's completely GAD or just anxiety or anticipation, right?
Yeah.
What are some things that, in fact, I kind of think that it might be interesting to kind of look at a couple of things that might be a cause, that can cause or come from anxiety. So, thyroid disorders.
Yes, that's good that she mentioned earlier that you need to have a physical and know what your body's doing to make sure your body is not the cause of some of this stuff. And so being able to diagnose thyroidism or some of the other ones that you have here.
So do some elimination of what?
Diabetes, heart conditions, high blood pressure. There's just so many things that will contribute to your body going into kind of a activating the nervous system. And I think awareness is just really an important function. We know that we have a polyvagal system. We know that we have a, right here, right now, Brandie, are you safe?
I am safe.
I am too.
Yes.
I feel comfortable.
I feel very comfortable with my friends.
Yep.
Yes.
And so am I. So our parasympathetic is very activated right now. And when our parasympathetic, and I have this little chart that I think Logan is going to be putting up on the screen, but when we're in our parasympathetic mode, our body's regulated, our fear is modulated, we have greater access to our intuition, our insight, our social engagement is activated, and we have the ability to listen and then respond accordingly. We're not hyper aroused where we're thinking, what am I going to do to respond? And we don't listen. We have more connection and more mindset to others. We're able to self-soothe and emotionally regulate. Full activation of our prefrontal cortex, our thinking part of our brain, our problem-solving part of our brain. Okay, I'm feeling like, do I have enough place settings for Thanksgiving? What do I need to do? Okay, you know what? We'll put another leaf in the table and add a few plates, and I can problem solve that, right? Our state of mind is calm, alert, aware, mindful, flexible, accepting, energetic, coherent, empathetic. And we have a full range of emotion. And that's not just all the good ones, happy, excited, anticipation, but that's also anger, frustration, with, and here's the key, with a sense of control and an awareness of options. So if I'm really angry with you, I can go take a walk instead of punch you in the face, right?
That's nice.
Julie.
That's good.
Julie's like, that's nice.
And in this mindset, what I call the green zone, new learning can take place. So parasympathetic nervous system is the green zone, and the wider our window of tolerance is, the more we're able to tolerate, the longer we can be in the green zone and handle life and all of that it's throwing at us right now. Conversely, when we go into the sympathetic nervous system, that's when our have increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, increased blood flow to the large muscle masses. We go into fight, flight, freeze response, activate of our hypervigilance, anticipation, anxiety, and a perception of danger and or real danger, because our sympathetic nervous system is important for us. If we're having an earthquake, we need to know, do we get under the table? Do we get in the door frame? What do we do if we start, hearing gunshots is a big one right now. Our sympathetic nervous system is there to save us. It's a survival mechanism. So we want to have a sympathetic nervous system, but it's that perception of danger that can get us on that hamster wheel and keep us spinning. And in the hyperarousal state, our prefrontal cortex goes down. It kind of goes offline, and our thinking becomes very chaotic and rigid. And we're just operating off of our emotional brain to function. And that's what I call, when I'm working with my clients, the red zone. So a lot of times, if we spend a lot of time in that red zone, that hyper-arousal state, our anxiety, we're creatures of habit. So the more habitually we spend time in that, the more that becomes our activated nervous system on a regular basis. And everything we do is operating in that zone. And I think the more we can say, oh, well, that makes sense. Now, what am I going to do to calm myself down when I'm in that state of being? And I think that's the first thing that I try and help the clients that I work with recognize is it feels so out of control, but it's not. It's not. We get into emotional reasoning, thinking errors where we think this is how I'm feeling right now, so it must be how I'm always going to feel. And if we can learn to combat some of these things, do some coping skills, calming that nervous system. It's research based that in 20 to 30 seconds of deep breathing, not shallow breathing. A lot of times we think, I'm breathing, but it's not helping. And we're so habitually in the shallow breathing. But if we can practice abdominal breathing to the point, in 20 to 30 seconds of abdominal breathing, we can calm ourselves out of the red zone and get ourselves back into the green zone where we can use our prefrontal cortex, our thinking brain again, and start problem solving.
I was thinking that the way I kind of explain it is when you're in the green zone, your body, your mind, your heart, your emotions are all flexible. They can be ebbed and flow. When you get into that red zone, it's got to be this way or this way.
Black and white.
Yes, and you get very rigid and even if you're not in that fight, flight, freeze mode, you still, as you get your nervous system starts increasing, you start really thinking less and less about the options, and either I've got to get this job or I'm a failure. I've got to be able to do this or it's not going to work out. And so being able to stay in that flexible green zone to be able to see options and ebb and flow through life versus heightening that and cutting off those options and not even be able to see what's going on.
I love that. I think that is really actually quite well put, Wendy. I love that. You do that with your clients. That is beautiful. And of course, a lot of therapists do this polyvagal theory, and that I think it's really awesome. Going into a couple of other things you also had, and by the way, if you are a listener right now, a podcast listener, join us on YouTube and find us under Therapist Table Talk, and you can actually watch this. And the presentation that Wendy just did will come up on the screen. You can actually view it. You can also go to Bluebee CS or bluebeecs.com, and you can look and find this sheet if you would like to use it and modify it into your own life and into the way that you're feeling, and see if it can be a helpful tool for you. Let's talk about the other thing that you did bring, the scoring card. I love this.
This is also something, I'm a visual person, so I use a lot of visuals when I'm working with my clients. And this is a SUD score, subjective units of distress. We use it a lot with EMDR because if we're dealing with a trauma, but in this case, anxiety, And yes, this event happened and that sucks, but it doesn't bother me anymore. It no longer holds energy in me. I've integrated it. I may be at a 0. Or if every time I think of it, I get my blood pressure goes up, all those sympathetic nervous system reactions come up, and I feel like I'm crawling out of my skin. Then we're at a 10. And when I'm working with my clients, I ask them, what's your SUD score right now? And I use it definitely with my EMDR, but I'll even use it with just talking in general in a session. Tell me what your SUD score is. What can we do? And we'll do a lot of things that if we get to that point of our session. And then at the end, I'll say, okay, tell me what your SUD score is now. And they'll be able to recognize what they've done, not me, but what they've done to lower their SUD score. Maybe it's up here in the 6, 7, 8, 9, and they've been able, by the time they leave, by doing some of these interventions, bring it down here into the 0, 1, 2, 3 category.
I love that. I think that is actually quite wonderful. I call it your alarm system. Tell me what's going on. There's an alarm system. You can usually tell by looking at a client because they'll start fidgeting a little more. They won't make eye contact. They start doing this thing.
Yep.
And so I'm like, okay, tell me what is that happening right there? Your alarm systems are going off inside your body. And I love it that you have a rating system of like 0 to 10, where are you at? You know, because that can be very helpful. And so a lot of times I'm a board worker. I do a ton of board work. My board at work needs to be cleaned. It's just
your whiteboard.
My whiteboard.
Okay.
Yes, whiteboard. And so I will get up there and I'll draw a volcano.
Yeah.
You know, because we're about to get to the explosion part.
Yeah.
Like, where are we
Are you
at?
simmering, or smoking, or about to blow? Yeah.
Yeah. And when we're about to blow, we know some of those things by being aware of what's happening inside our body. And our body's awesome. Just like you talked about, it does have some of the signs and symptoms. It'll tell us. If we are available to listen to our body, it can tell us exactly where we're at. But we have to understand what our body is saying. We've got to get into that zone of understanding. Like, when our body feels this way, it shows me by this sign or this sign or this sign. And sometimes it's like clenching of the teeth, right? Or like feeling like my hands are on fire, or my arms, my nervous system, like I'll bounce my legs a lot, right? My mind, my rapid thoughts are like going all over the place.
Yes.
I'm thinking, and not necessarily all positively, negatively. And so I'm like constantly fearing of that futuristic thinking. And so if I can recognize my body and what my body's trying to tell me, or with my clients, what their body is trying to tell them, I think we hit a gold mine there, you know? And then I can be like, okay, now what? You notice the signs and the symptoms of your body trying to tell you these things. Now, where are we at on this volcano or on your chart? And then what do you know on how to bring that down? And it's like the deep breathing, like we talk about through the stomach. And I love that the abdomen. And then, you know, let's call out some of our cognitive thinking skills. Like, are we using actually healthy cognitive thoughts? And if not, let's call out some of those lies. You know, we're getting stuck here. And so a lot of this is the same things that you're doing, just a little differently. And I think that that's really cool. I'll sometimes even put charts on the board where I'm like, what are your expectations?
Yeah.
Like, let's look at your expectations. Let's look at your 1, 2, and 3 on your list, and is your actions actually following up with the 1, 2, and 3? Because sometimes that causes anxiety too, when you're like, my number 1 is my family, but yet work is like 100% these days. You know,
you're incongruent.
Yes.
With your values.
And then sometimes we have to have acceptance for that.
Yeah.
You know, acceptance of like, oh, you're in the tax industry and taxes are next week and you have 500 clients. Like, can we have some anxiety? Like, it's okay that maybe you're feeling a little anxious about feeling incongruent about that. And so acceptance.
Yes.
That radical acceptance of like, it just is right now. It's not going to be this way forever. And then what are the ways that I can get it back? And when can I get it back? Maybe set some dates, some times. Some of those things can kind of help lower anxiety. So those are some things. Julie, Wendy, anything else you want to add of any other things?
I just think there's a lot of different coping things. Wendy and I were talking about this just a couple weeks ago, about how just being aware has improved our own lives. Because if you're not aware of it and you're anxious, then you do become irritable and you're frustrated, and if you just keep moving and don't stop to take care of that, then you're not going to ever resolve it. You're on that hamster wheel. But if you can say, wait a minute, I am running on the hamster wheel, my stomach hurts, I just snapped at my husband or whatever.
That irritability.
and you can say, okay, wait a minute, I need to take some deep breaths. I need to figure out why this is happening, and then regroup and be able to go back to life and with some of those coping skills and just be able to do okay.
That's awesome. I love that.
What I always say is if you can name it, you can tame it. And I think the more we understand, and I have a lot of clients say, well, that makes so much sense why I'm doing that.
Definitely.
Because then if they can name it, they can tame it, and they can spend time either cognitively and what we call top-down work, looking at the thinking errors. What specifically thinking errors are you getting caught up in? Is it the black and white thinking, the all or nothing, the catastrophizing? But it's also, and we also know that our thoughts affect our emotions, which then affect our behaviors, and that's research based. But we also know that subcortically we have our somatic system and our emotionals, and all of a sudden we wake up and we just feel gross, and we feel heavy, and we feel anxious, and we're thinking cognitively, why? Everything's fine. Why am I feeling this way? And so then we deal with more what we call bottom-up work, where we work on, okay, let's take a few of those deep breaths. Let's do some yoga. Let's do some more somatic work. There's apps that can help you with one of them that's a pretty popular one right now is Calm, CALM, the Calm app. And if you can just find 5 minutes once a day to just turn on that Calm app and follow through with one of them. If I'm looking at my clock and I think, oh, you know what? I'm going to go sit in my bathtub and I'm going to turn on the Ho'oponopono, which is about a 25-minute meditation. Great. I'll put in some Epsom salts, some bubbles, and light my candles, and I can sit in there for 25 minutes sitting through the Ho'oponopono meditation. But if I look at my clock and I've only got 5 minutes, then I can also pull up on my app a 5-minute meditation for anxiety or for depression or for whatever I'm struggling with, and I can sit there for that allotted amount of time and again calm down my nervous system. And a lot of this anxiety has to do with the activated nervous system and our survival. Are either literal danger, we're having an earthquake that's going to consume our home, or
we live on the earthquake belt, and it's going to happen someday, you know.
Which also we had that earthquake back with COVID, so we had both the real, well, they were both real, but we had stuff that our nervous system was saying, oh crap, we're going to die.
Yeah.
And how are we as a species going to survive this? And we go into survival mode. And we don't want to live in survival mode all of the time. It takes away the joy of life. It takes away the pleasure of life. We know we have to survive, but how can we survive and enjoy life? And that's something there's not a one size fits all for that. That's where you get with your client and together you unpack what does surviving and enjoying life look like for you, so that your nervous system can say, you know what, yeah, I'm okay right now, right here, right now, I'm okay.
I love that. I used to get really mad at my husband because after work of a long day, he would come home and he would put up farting videos on his phone. I mean, I would look at him and be like, are you kidding me right now? Like, I can only hear so many fake farting sounds. Like, that
Right.
And so, but then I recognized, like, no, this is the way that he feels to, like, calm down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he comes home and this is how he decompresses and how he's able to, like, really enjoy the rest of the night with the rest of us. And it reduces his irritability.
That's right.
I did notice that, you guys. I did notice that when he put on his farting noises, and everyone's going to find him on the streets now and be like, so you're the farter, man, right? But now it does. There is a difference when he comes home and puts on his farting noises. And because of that acceptance from me, I can be more tolerable of that because I recognize that's his way and our way of communicating with each other, that works for him. So I allow it to happen. I have a lot of clients that love cat videos, like funny cat videos. So they'll watch the cat videos online, or even just like our minds are amazing things. We can remember memories of like our kids or our family members, or that one holiday where we got that special something, and something like that can really, if we can tap into that and use that, it's at our belt all the time to kind of calm us down and remember like life is good, and it's okay that I'm feeling a little anxious right now. I'm not going to feel like this forever. There are some things that I can put in place to eliminate and to readjust and just kind of help me get through it a little, you know?
Right.
Well, think about it. Our nervous system cannot be activated, and we're in survival mode, and we're still sitting here laughing. So if we can activate the laughing part of our brain, the calming part of or the nervous system calms down, because we're not in survival mode if we're laughing and having fun. So
That is true. That is true. So the theme of today is survival through laughing.
Okay, I like that.
let's all combat a little bit of anxiety and anxiety and GAD, which is generalized anxiety disorder, through laughing. And I think
Find some joy.
Find some joy in our life. Maybe we need to do a podcast on joy. I have the perfect person. But thank you so much for joining us today. We're so grateful to have you a part of it. Again, if you would like to visit our website at www.bluebcs.com, you can pick up some of these handouts that Wendy has provided today. You can also join us on our Facebook, which is bluebcs.com, and Instagram, which we're super excited to have. Please, if you have any questions, reach out, find somebody. Implement some of these things in your life that could be helpful for you, because living with anxiety disorder is not very fun to do. And so if we can find some things that we enjoy as a little bit of element of fun, definitely laughter, ladies. And then we can go on that journey of improving our mental health through self-awareness and through inserting some things that might really be of benefit to our lives. So until next time, thanks for joining us. We'll see you later.
thank you.
Bye.